Good afternoon. As many within the U.S., as well as the rest of the world, has seen, this year's election has proven to be turbulent and very divisive among U.S. citizens. Those with similar views and values gather together to voice their stance and beliefs on what they believe is right or beneficial to all. In the same stroke, when one comes across another that doesn't agree with their views, it serves as a prelude to a growing rift that can appear between people. This can bring anything from the smallest debate and hashing out of beliefs and thoughts to a full-on altercation. It is an observation so widespread that even the media has used it, often in a satirical sense, to make a pitch to their desired audience, whether it's commercials on television trying to advertise a product, or a commercial on social media such as Twitter or YouTube that seek to entertain or convey a message to their viewers, as opposed to the variety found on TV. However, to those who are able to separate their views and possible biases as best as they can from the issue, it's easy to tell that there is something absent from the American people that is so fundamental that it played a part in the creation of the United States over 200 years ago: compromise. In its absence, many have come to lose faith in their government. Opposing parties have come to believe that the other's ideologies and beliefs pose a threat to the nation, and progress, essential to our nation's growth economically as well as socially, has been obstructed on the basis of halting one who doesn't necessarily agree with others' views. For starters, the concept of compromise is lost on voters and constituents that take opposing ideological views. Instead of coming to an ideological compromise to overcome the impasse between their opposing views, those assuming stances that oppose the other have come to have growing sentiments of frustration, anxiety, and anger. In a survey conducted by the Pew Research Center, published on June 22, 2016, the resulting data suggested that over half of Democrats, 55%, were fearful of Republicans, and just under half of Republicans, 49%, felt the same toward Democrats. From these results, combined with what one can observe in casual environments such as face-to-face discussions or online forums and social media, ideas between outspoken and self-identified Democrats and Republicans can clash, with neither ever wanting to consider cooperation of any sort, nor negotiating between their stances to find a way to agree. In another instance, an example of lack of compromise can be seen within our government, this time in practice. In the past 8 years of having an African American as U.S. president, overall views are somewhat mixed. But it should be said that a considerable amount of politicians and legislators, mainly within Congress, were none too enthused about this. In an act of protest, which many would describe as unprofessional, congressmen and other legislators took actions to obstruct all actions and responsibilities that Barack Obama has had to address as U.S. president. In an article by Dana Milbank, published by the Washington Post on March 11, 2016, the article reported that chairmen of both the House of Representatives and the Senate announced that they would not hold hearings regarding the president's budget proposals, nor permit for administration officials to testify. To those who keep a close eye on politics and activity within government by legislators and public office holders, this is reminiscent to when Congress swore to not consider or even meet with any nominee that President Obama would bring before the Senate for potential approval in order to address the open Supreme Court justice seat left behind by the late Antonin Scalia, who passed away in this past February of 2016. There are countless other examples of Republican obstruction within Congress against the actions of the president, a Democrat, but it is important to keep the examples current, up to date, and brief. In a weekly address on July 12, 2016, President Obama commented on Congress's efforts, which was majority Republican at the time, to block proposals and bills designed to address problems faced by the middle class. Technically, Congress hasn't approved of any proposal since the Stimulus Act of 2009, as well as approving tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations within the House of Representatives. Excuse me. This proves that there are those within government elected by the people, of course, that very well wish to do their jobs as promised to their constituents. But unfortunately, this is outweighed by those who have no interest in making any compromise in addressing an issue with someone who may not have the same political alignment as them, instead obstructing them regardless of the results that may follow, as well as being focused on furthering their own political party's agenda, to the point that the U.S. as a whole stands to suffer as a result of nothing being done by those appointed by the people to operate the U.S. government and its economy by proxy. Lastly, comes the resulting view of government by U.S. citizens. Excuse me. In a poll administered and reported on by Justin McCarthy and published by Gallup on January 22, 2014, 65% of Americans voiced their dissatisfaction with government's performance, attributable to the effects of Congress's efforts to obstruct bills designed to promote and assist the middle class in their standard of living. With a partisan gridlock between a president who is willing to compromise and Congress, the majority of which assume a political identity and stance that clashes with the president's own, and have made it a point to publicly announce their lack of will to compromise, leads to an ever-watching audience, that being U.S. citizens, to be dissatisfied with government, and they know just who is to blame for the lack of productivity within our nation's government. In closing, the fact is that compromise as a concept is absent not only within the U.S. government, but from the American people as well. It shows that within our society is some key aspect of our culture. Its absence has shown that without it, progress and growth as a nation is an uphill struggle and only further divides the U.S. Additionally, it causes problems that can be felt and observed on multiple levels that one could say will serve to create something far worse than the current problems we face today. While in theory, it seems easy to suggest to agree to disagree or to find a way to compromise, you have to ask yourself how one could go about doing that when everyone thinks that they're right.